I'm sorry.
magazine, and it was specifically about a gentleman from France and a gentleman from the UK, and they wanted to immigrate in the United States. They had venture capital backing, and they wanted to start a business completely in Boulder, Colorado. And they were able to get their venture capital, and they started part of the business in Boulder, but the other part they had to start in England, where they're located. And I think it was like a dozen, 2 dozen jobs that essentially could have been ours, but this has to stay in England because of just the
Because of the way our laws.
Yeah, so.
Well, I'll certainly love to get my hands on a copy of that article so I can learn more about that, and then we can have a discussion. Okay. No, thank you very much.
Can I speak to that issue?
Absolutely, please.
4 years ago, we got a call from our assistant pastor in our church in Florida. Said one of the girls that was in our youth department was displaced. Her dad basically threw her out of the house at 29 years old. When she came into America from Jamaica when she was 9, her papers were all destroyed. The dad, because of running from the IRS, jumps jobs, and they just couldn't get in touch with NIS when the appointment was to be kept. We have been working for almost 4 years now trying to get her legal. We've sent our last $1,000 check to the Department of Homeland Security. We've been through the route of the attorney, probably $2,500. First, she had to get a birth certificate and a passport out of Jamaica, which we were able to do much faster than America moves. When you see a third world country, you know, doing something very quickly is kind of amazing, but boy, our whole immigration, trying to do it legally, it's no wonder they come across the border. I mean, it is so time-consuming, expensive, and cumbersome. I'm surprised anybody does it.
Right, right. Well, there's certainly, flaws within the system, and when we talk about addressing the issue of immigration, I think we need to take a holistic approach to it and, make sure that we're enforcing the laws that we have as it relates to illegal immigration. But I'm certainly going to take a much closer look to some of these issues now that it's been brought to my attention. So thank you very much.
With legal immigration, our church went down to Honduras, and one of our church members married a Honduras lady, and took 10 years through the legal system to get her her green card, citizenship, whatever.
And I've heard other stories similar to that. So even then,
To ask a very open-ended question, what are your thoughts about healthcare reform and the current environment that we're dealing with, and as a corollary to what you mentioned earlier, the job-killing aspects of that?
yes, sir. Thank you for that question. I would submit to you that first and foremost, what's happening in Washington with regard to healthcare has nothing to do with healthcare. It has everything to do with government takeover of our lives. Because if it were truly, truly about healthcare reform, we would see some commonsensical approaches contained in that bill that frankly do not exist. Number one, individuals should be given the same tax treatment as those who are in an employer-based system. You ought to be able to purchase your life insurance across state lines, your health insurance, much like life insurance, which would increase competition and drive down costs. High-risk pools for people who have pre-existing conditions, putting your choice of health care and what you need in your lap so that you can make the decisions, and that can be done through health savings accounts, medical liability reform. None of these things exist in the current bill. And, what I would submit would be the better solution would be that we use these free market principles to drive down costs rather than growing the government and creating the uncertainty that this bill creates. And it's quite frankly causing doctors all across this country to think about downsizing their offices. I've had several conversations with physicians in Montgomery about their reaction to this bill. So I think there's some commonsensical approaches. I have signed a pledge that if given the opportunity to represent you in Congress, that I will vote to repeal this current health care bill. and we can start looking at some real commonsensical approaches. I love, and I reread it, it's been a month or so ago, there was an op-ed written by the CEO of Whole Foods in the Wall Street Journal, where he talked about these health savings accounts for his employees, where each employee was given a certain number of dollars per year, in which they had the ability to make decisions as it related to how they wanted their health care dollars spent. And one of the things that it does in the point of doing, talking about personal responsibility for health care, you know, if you're paying, let's say, $150 a month for medicine X, and you go visit your physician, and your physician says, well, you know, yeah, it costs $150 a month to treat this with medicine X, but if you lose 30 pounds, you don't need medicine X anymore. Well, it's your $5,000 or whatever the amount may be for the year. There's a whole different incentive for you at that point to start taking that responsibility for your health care when you're deciding how those dollars are going to be spent, and it creates a healthier you too. So there's a lot of ideas like that I think certainly were discussed in the conservative Republican caucus, but with the way the numbers look right now and with our current speaker, that discussion was never truly had. So when I say I've signed a pledge to repeal it, we all know that if that happened with the current administration, that could be vetoed and probably would be. But just remember that Congress holds the purse strings, and where we may not be able to repeal the bill until 2012, we don't have to fund it. And I think that's a very important point to make. Yes, sir.
I'd like to come back to the subject of immigration for a moment. We have heard the examples of those difficult times that some people have had trying to gain legitimate access, and we are in sympathy with that, and that certainly does need to be looked at. But I want to share with you a couple of examples of things that have happened in this county in the last few days.
Okay.
One complaint was registered with the sheriff's office that there were some illegals working on a construction project. A person went out there to look into it, talked to 2 or 3 or 4 different contractors, and found one contractor working either 9 or 11 illegals. It came to the law enforcement's attention because that contract was let for 12 cents a square foot on the job, whereas the low legitimate bid was 30 cents on the square foot, 30 cents a square foot on the job, and somebody that was entitled to that was denied that job. This is part of the problem that we're having. The sheriff called the ICE people. They came down, went out to the contractor, slapped him on the hand, and said, "Don't let it happen again." And those illegals are still wandering around Houston County. That's the first one. The second one is, it was in the paper a couple of, either today or yesterday, the sheriff's office busted a counterfeiting operation here that an illegal was running that was turning out high-quality passports, high-quality driver's license from several states, high-quality green cards, and selling them. And it was busted because one of these documents was sold for $300. This is what's happening here. And I think that as we talk about the immigration issue, and we have sympathy with people who want to come to this country, and I can understand why Haiti could do it in a hurry because they don't have anything else to offer to the people there. And certainly they can get rid of a lot of people quickly. But I think we have to keep the focus here on the damage that's being done to people here and the insidious nature of this immigration problem that we have, where a passport can be sold for $300 and no telling what will happen after that. So this has happened here in Houston County.
Yes, sir. And I have heard other very similar stories throughout the state. You know, in North Alabama, there was at one point a conversation about a medical facility having to close its doors because of the amount of indigent care as it related to the illegal issue that they were having there. So it's something that we hear about throughout the state. That's why, again, I go back to my first 2 points. There's a lot of discussion around this issue and a lot of discussion to be had, but the 2 most important things are that we secure our border and we enforce the laws that we have. And our government, our federal government, has failed us. Yes, sir?